Hello, everybody. My name is Hannah Mahan, and I'm very excited to host this first live stream event. Awesome. I think in this tutorial, we're just going to start with a really simple, basic Happy Path Garden to get a feel for the tool and show kind of what its capabilities are without getting lost in all of the details of all of the tools and all of the buttons that you can click. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to share this screen and we can head to Native Garden Planner. So for this video, for the purposes of this video, we're going to create a new garden, which we're going to create from scratch. And this is just going to be a simple Maryland-based foundation project. And we can set our location as Maryland. And we have pretty standard filters that can be applied to this entire project. So we already set Maryland as the filter. As far as growing conditions, this entire project is going to take place within a part sun, part shade. And then we hit save. Really quickly, can someone sound off? Oh gosh, can someone sound off and let me know in the chat if you're getting any sound feedback? I am worried that as I'm recording it, I'm hearing sound back, so I just want to make sure that it's not endlessly annoying. So somebody let me know. Otherwise, we can get started. So the first thing that happens when you create a new project, after you set your filters, which get applied to the catalog every time you want to search for a plant, we enter this workspace, this canvas area. So I just wanted to take just a quick moment to go through kind of what the elements of this page are. And then we can start digging into some of the fun features. And we can go from a completely blank project like it is today to a totally finished native garden plan in about 30 minutes. And I don't want to waste any time, so I'm sorry if I'm talking fast. I will try to slow myself down. So what we're looking at here, we have core elements. We have the sidebar, which is basically your way to view and manage your garden. So anything that's in your garden, you should be able to look up over here and add and edit from over here as well. You have the canvas, which is this area where you can actually interact with the virtualized garden that you're creating. And then over here, you have the control panel, which is manipulation of the canvas and some hotkey buttons to help you, quickly add things, quickly remove things, share, export, things like that. So we're starting by defining our entire space, which is the garden project. So if you think of a case where you're going to have multiple garden beds, the project is the entire space containing all garden beds, all hardscaping, all water features, everything that you can think of falls under the project. So the first thing that the tool asks you to do is define the entire outer bounds of your whole project. If you're only creating one garden bed, then the garden bed and the project space might be the same area. But for our purposes, because we're going to do a foundation planting with a bed on either side, our project space will contain more than that. So I'm going to use this little form over here just to make it a little bit simpler. So for construction mode, we're just going to say 30 feet by, let's say 30 feet, make it a big square. And great, that's our project space. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a house feature, a house structure. And you can see as I populate various objects in the canvas, starting with our project, our sidebar becomes populated with that information as well. So we've got total area. Our surface pattern is just solid white right now. If I click into this, I will have the ability to change the name of my project, edit the default filters that I set at the beginning. So that's where I set that my state was Maryland, and we were working with, I think, part shade and part sun. Yep. So that's how I can edit those if I need to. I can edit the points or resize if I need to, but I'm pretty happy with that. Or I can blow it all up and start over. Um, and then the last thing I can do from here, I can add notes and I can also change the appearance of my garden project. So if I know by default my entire garden project is going to be, a parking lot, I can select asphalt. For my purposes, it's going to be grass. So I'm going to select grass. And I'm going to set the opacity at like 70 and bump the scale down a little bit. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. I can X out of that editing panel. And now you can see this has been updated to say my project surface pattern is grass. The next thing I can do, I'm not ready for garden beds just yet. I want to keep adding a little bit of my structures and fixtures. So the next thing I'm going to add is this hardscaping, which is kind of like a catch-all term for any shape that you want to create for a flexible purpose, whether it's a patio or a walkway or like a building. Those can all fall under hardscaping. So for here, it's going to be another rectangle just because it's another house. And I'm going to click to anchor one point. And then as I drag, you can see the segments updating for how big each side of the rectangle that I'm creating is. So let's say for our purposes, it's just going to be 30 by 10. I select that. Great. I'm going to name this, just so I don't forget, house. And then I can even, from here, you can see now it's this white circle on top of the grass. I can add a label just so that from the canvas, I keep track of what each of my structures are. So there's my house. So moving right along, I think I'm going to add another structure, another hardscape just for the walkway. And I know this is kind of like diving into some of the not fun, not plant stuff, but as soon as we get this set up, then we can move on to some of the more core features with, plant filtering and adding. But I just wanted to get this out of the way so that we can get to the fun stuff. So we're going to do another rectangle. And we know that a standard walkway is about 4 feet wide. And we know that 30 minus, what is this, 10, I think. It's going to be, let's do 20 by 4. So we can just do that really quickly. All right. And go. Awesome. So this is going to be our walkway. Oops, typo. Okay. And then let's move this down here. And if we want to tweak something without dragging it around, you can also use the arrow keys on your keyboard to move things. So that's what I'm doing here. And then if you need fine control, you can hold shift and then you get, and hit any of the arrow keys and you kind of get that fine-tuned control as well. So now that seems about where I want it to be. If I want to make sure that it's equidistant from each side, then I can use this ruler tool from the control panel. And as it tells you here, you can click 2 points on the canvas to measure the distance between. So I'm just going to make sure really quickly that from this edge to the walkway is, 12.79. That doesn't seem right. It seems like we might have to budget over a little bit. Let's check on the other side just to make sure. And yep, not quite right. So let's get this out of here. And then if we have 30 feet and this is 4 feet, then we want 13 feet precisely on either side. So we can kind of do too far. All right, we'll say that's close enough. I'm going to reset my viewport. Anytime I zoom in or out, which I can do by scrolling or by hitting Control plus or Command plus if you're on a Mac to zoom in, or Control or Command minus to zoom out. Anytime I get stuck, I can either hit this button and hit reset, or I can hit this button to reset, or I can hit Control or Command enter. And that'll always bring me back to a view where the entire project area is visible from my default viewport. Okay, so now we have our walkway. Let's add a label for that. Great, move that to the center. And finally, we just know that we want maybe a garden bed on each side. And we can get into the difference between rectangle, oval, and freeform in a little bit. For now, it's probably just important to know that you have the option for these three different shape types. So oval is oval or circle, a rectangle can be a square or a rectangle, and freeform is kind of just like a connect the dots polygon style shape constructor. Um, and that comes with the ability to add curves, which we will get into. But for now, we're just going to start with simple rectangle. And we're just going to say we want roughly a 4-foot bed here and roughly a 4-foot bed here. Oh, and I did move it over too much. We can fix that at the end. Okay, so now we have our structures and we can get to the fun stuff. So if you're coming to nativegardenplanner.com, you probably have a decent amount of interest in the plants. So we went over the first tab in the sidebar, which contains information about your fixtures and structures. Now we can go to the next tab, which is how you add plants. So here's your plant catalog, where you can, select plants from this main catalog. And also, if you have added custom plants, you can change this to filter for plants that you have personally added. If, for instance, the catalog was missing a native in your area or you have a non-native in your backyard, you can always add that with this add custom plant form. And then it will show up when you change the source drop down to my plants. So the key things to remember when interacting with this catalog tab in the sidebar are making sure you know what source is being displayed as far as what plants you can add, and these filters. So here are some of the quick filters, which are probably the most important things that you would fill out when looking for a plant. But you can also click this advanced filters link to bring up kind of like that full filter spec that we saw for the project filters. So that includes things like wildlife benefits, is it good for pollinators, growth behavior, warnings if it's toxic to pets. That's all going to be gated behind this advanced filter. But for now, I think all we want to start off with is finding some plants that would be good for this spec. So that means we want probably something that's not too high. We want to start with some bushes, and then maybe fill in with some perennial plants as well. But we can start just with this. And I want to focus on shrubs because I want some nice, pretty shrubs in front of my house. And we, of course, need to make sure that, let's see, our filters. Yes, we want to apply those. So great. Now we have sun, we have our filtered for Maryland, and we just need to reapply these. And another thing is this particular garden, let's say, has very dry soil. So I just want to constrain it further and see kind of what offerings we have. Okay, so now one last thing is, because it's in the front yard and there's no sort of fence, these are all great options. There's still a lot of them. Let's say I'm not entirely sure which one to go with. Of course, I can click and see more details about them. I can read that it has small white flowers, bright berries in the fall. I can read all of the benefits that it has here. And one thing that I can do as I'm filtering through is I can say, okay, because I still have a lot of options, let's see if there are any that are resistant to deer, because in the front yard, um, it's just, I don't have any dogs to chase away the deer in the front yard. They're in my backyard. I don't have a fence. So let's just see what comes up. Okay, so now I have four options, and that's pretty good. So I do like the chokeberry. I have, I'm biased. I have one in my backyard, but let's say this is my favorite option based on what I've read about, and based on all of the benefits that it offers. So I'm going to add this to my garden. And we're just going to focus on one garden bed for now. So I'm just going to say that's going to go right at the beginning. And now for some variants. I think I want something that's maybe a little bit smaller that I can put in this back row, and then I can fill in the front row with some other sort of perennials or sedges or things like that. But it's most important that this one's deer resistant, because this back row is going to be kind of hidden by this and by the stuff in the front row. So maybe now I can get rid of my deer resistant filter and just see what comes up. So I go back to my advanced filters panel from the catalog, and I can just click to remove the tag just like that. And I can click apply. I'm still looking for shrubs here. And let's see what else is here. I do like New Jersey tea. That's a good option. We can remember that one. But I already know that this produces white flowers. Maybe I just want something, a little different, little pop of color in a different way. And also something that's, definitely a little smaller than this, just to give some height variety. Okay, so I see shrubby St. John's wort, which is a beautiful plant, and I like how it looks. I can read a little bit about it. It's got these bright yellow flowers. It satisfies my criteria for, not too much white. And it even tells me here some good landscape uses. It's good for foundation planting. So that seems pretty good to me. If I click this, add to garden, then I enter this stamping mode again, which I should have called out earlier. But stamping mode means you can see that my cursor is now a little picture of the plant that I'm adding. And it just means anywhere I click, that plant is going to be added. So I can click to place as many as I want. And let's say I place them like this, and I'm like, oh, the spacing isn't exactly right. I can click and drag in the canvas to straighten them up, but I can also select multiple at one time by clicking one and then holding shift and then clicking another plant, and then holding shift again and clicking that last plant. And I see that my selected shape toolbar has changed a little bit. So I've lost some options that are specific to plants, and I have some that are specific for when multiple objects are selected. So first I can center them. So you can see that they tweak to themselves a little bit just to be aligned properly. And then I have this option to distribute space evenly. And that's what I'm going to click. And now they're perfectly centered from start to end. So that's exactly what I wanted to happen. I'm pretty happy with that. Just to quickly call out some of the other features that are available on that selected shape toolbar. So right now, nothing is selected, which is why there's no additional menu up here. If I select a surface or a hardscape, you can see some of the buttons that are common to all objects within the planner, which are, creating a label for this, deleting it, this edit menu, which brings up for shapes like garden beds and surfaces. I can edit the points, or I can resize right from here, and it brings up these dots that allow me to change the shape of it from there. It also has a rotate button, so I can rotate if I want. I can flip horizontally or vertically. I also have this rotate anchor, for what it's worth, within the planner here when a shape is selected, and that should be for all objects as well. But this is just, if you want a clean 30-degree rotation or you want to flip it, that's what's found within this menu. Layers, we probably don't have time to get into layers today, but layers help you control things like locking, opacity, grouping by maybe a specific type of plant or a season. And then this little settings icon has additional options that are kind of like a general. So this is duplicate, and this is your standard bring forward, send it back, blah, blah, blah. Plants have a couple extra options within that general menu. So you can duplicate, you can also re-enter stamping mode from here. You can swap, which we'll show in a minute. Change plant image comes into play when we change the mode of our planner, which we'll show in a little bit. Change size is a feature that's gated behind the paid subscription that says, let's say I've added this chokeberry and it comes in at 6 by 6, but I know in my region that it's more like 5 by 5. Then I can change that here. Let's change this one too, and I can hit apply, and then it shrinks a little bit. So you might want to do that for a number of reasons. If you're adding in trees and you want to show them as they're being planted instead of at their mature end state, you might change the size, things like that. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. We have our deer-resistant chokeberry plant here. We have our St. John's wort next to it. And we can also select all of the same plant and just kind of move them over a little bit as needed. And now we just kind of need something for our front row in this foundation project. So we are nearly there. We can just change our filter from shrub to perennial and double check the rest of our filters. Let's see what else we have. We have a bunch of heights selected. We probably don't want something this tall again, so we're just going to deselect that. And now we have 1 to 2 feet, 2 to 4 feet, and we can even add in something a little bit smaller. And now we have these options. So if I want something maybe with some color, I can check out this plant. I like that it has a long blooming time. I like that its flowers sort of become this ground cover. So that's a good option. But maybe I want something just a little bit simpler. I can, keep looking through here. I can check out the bloom times just from this little card. And based on all these, maybe I just want something really simple like a sedge or a grass. That's something that we could do as well. So let's say I just want a nice grass. So for this, you see how small this is, and I have this big area that I basically want to fill with sedge. I can, from stamping mode, you see the second thing that it says here, it says click to place, and then it says drag to fill. So we're going to do that second one, which is drag to fill. So I'm going to click at the bottom of this garden bed, and then I'm going to drag the entire area that I want to fill. And then when I release, it should fill with pretty much as many can fit in there. And if I say, I think you can fit more, I can always go to this menu and I can hit duplicate. And then I immediately have another row that I can stagger just like that. And I hit escape to deselect anytime I need to make sure that I'm deselecting from whatever shape or shapes are currently the focus of the canvas. And then I can see that we have one whole garden bed. So quickly to duplicate this, I'm just going to show you can select a single plant. And then you can come in here again to select all same plants. And then I can hold shift to further add to my selection. And then I can always just copy and paste them like this. I can turn these into a group, and that's what we're going to do there. Nope, I think it lost it in the layers. Let's come back here. All right. Okay, so now we have our group, and if I select one now, it selects the entire group. I can duplicate this as needed, and I can bring them all over here, which is pretty cool. I can pan back over, and then I should even be able to flip horizontally. So let's see. All right. Here's my group. Now I just need to push these over, and boom, I have an entire foundation planting that includes 2 different types of shrubs and some sedges that all fit within my part sun, part shade, dry soil conditions. So let's say I'm pretty happy with that. I can always click this to share the public link with someone I know, and then they see an experience like this where they can view and interact with the plants that I've added, but they can't make any changes. And then let's say I'm happy with that, I can hit this export button. And then from here, you can see that it started generating this printout of, the rendering as you have it with all of your labels and your plants. If we scroll down, it's going to be generating these different types of images that will be helpful as well. So once they're done, I hit refresh and I can scroll down. Here's my builder spec. So it has the grid, the scale, so you can see exactly how far apart each of those, along with this little plant legend. It has your bill of materials, which you can, copy elsewhere or download if you need to paste those into an external Excel sheet, mulch, and then your plant appendix, which has kind of like the full write-up of each of the plants in your garden. And then this little bloom schedule just to give you an idea of what your garden's going to look like at various times of the year. So that is our super simple, very quick, empty project to finished foundation project in 30 minutes. I want to make sure that I've saved time for questions. So first, let me check the chat. I think it's going to do this crazy Zoom thing. Okay, great. So a couple of the questions that I had that were just submitted previously that I want to get to. The first one was, how can I find deer and rabbit resistant plants? I touched on this earlier. Deer resistant is currently a filter that's offered from the catalog. So again, from filters, if you click advanced, you can scroll down to features and benefits, and then it's under this wildlife section. So that's where deer resistant is. Rabbit resistant isn't currently a filter that is offered. But that's something that in kind of like a data expansion push for this tool, I could definitely consider adding. As far as in general, I think the question submitted also asked for just in general tips for how to keep plants in their early stages protected from wildlife that would want to munch on it. And honestly, like the best thing that you're going to get is a fence or a cage. And beyond that, people say they have limited success with sprays. I've found them to be, unless you're really vigorous about applying them and reapplying them, not very helpful. And in my opinion, if you know that you have critters that like to munch on your plants, it's best to try and plant textures that they don't like, like ferns and things that they just don't like to eat. I've seen people who have a lot of success at creating kind of like a zone of favorite plants for critters to eat. Like when I moved in, we had a bunch of hostas, and we've since relocated all those hostas to our side yard, and they are always grazed down to the little leaf. And those kind of like keep them busy for a while and keep them full. And honestly, they really like them. So if that's their first choice and then they see like all of these textured plants, they rarely want to go from something as delicious as a hosta to something as gross as, any of the deer resistant plants. So that's what I would say for that. The next question that somebody submitted was around kind of like an auto plan or auto feature where it defines a space, and then there's a button that you can press that can create garden beds with plants already populated in them from, say, like a list of plants that you've curated. As far as populating a garden bed, this is something that I had in a previous version of the tool, but I wasn't extremely happy with the quality that it output. And I think that while there's definitely still a lot of promise there, one thing that I really like about this tool is that it kind of gives you total control over where things are placed. And I would rather spend a lot of time producing tools and learning materials that help you learn actually how to plant a garden, then leave it to a tool or a machine, which gives you kind of like this false sense of security that it's going to be perfect, versus having you learn about the trade-offs and kind of become aware of the pros and cons of various plants in various contexts. So that's my current focus. I'm not saying it'll never come back, but I am happier with that in general than with a totally machine-driven algorithm. So I think those were the two main questions that were submitted via the form. But I'll try to pull this out so we don't have endless mirroring again. Does anybody have any questions elsewhere? Let me see. All right. Okay. I think I can stop sharing at this point. I know we're bumping right up against the 30-minute mark. Oh, I do have one question. Okay, let me see. How to add garden posts. Yes. Okay. So garden posts, as in, is this question around like background images and using them as garden posts, or is there a different type of garden post that you're talking about? Let me bring up my screen again. So if we wanted to add a custom background image that served as, like a trellis or some sort of a scaled image that we want to use and manipulate in various ways, from this interface, we can hit background image and we can choose one. Let me see if I have, I think I've used this one before, but let's say a mailbox. It's going to ask me to calibrate it just by asking, like how big is a known measurement in this image. So I know, for instance, that is, let's see, about half a foot, maybe. No, 4 inches, about a third of a foot. And then I just want this to come in. Let's do that. That is kind of like a quick way that I can add anything that I want, any dynamic image, and have it fit properly with the scale that is already on the canvas. So, and then from here, if I notice that this has been added at a lower Z index, I can always select it and use this quick, bring to front button. And then it's in the front. Boundary. How to add garden post boundary. I'm not entirely sure what this question is asking. I apologize. To section a garden. Okay. So if we wanted to, I'm sorry, I'm still not entirely sure how to section a garden. We have obviously many ways to add different garden beds. And maybe I can go over the freeform tool just to show the dynamic types of shapes that can be created. So here's this freeform tool, which is different from that rectangle tool that we've been using. So let's say I want to create, a garden down in the front by this mailbox. I can click to place the first one. And then, anywhere I place this second point is going to create a segment. And then let's say I wanted to add some curves. I would basically say, okay, in my head, I want it to curve this way. So I go to where the end of that first curve is, and then I press it and I hold it. And then I kind of have this like editable curve that I can drag around. And if I hold Command or Control while I do this, then I have even more control over the shape of the curve. It's going to try to do some snapping otherwise, but if you hold your control button, then you have the ability to kind of really affect that. So now I have, this one little curve, and let's say I want it to curve out this way. I go to where the curve is going to end, and then I press and hold, and I can do this. And then let's say I want it just to end up back there. We can press and hold again. And you can see this isn't like the nicest resolution to this. We would prefer it to be more round. So I'm going to release that for now, but I'm going to say, I think this needs to be edited, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit and say, I think we need another point. So I just click on a line where it says, now you've split the curve, and I'm going to put it halfway through. And I'm going to say this one gets to curve like this, and this one gets to curve like this. And then I hit escape to deselect, and it's a little bit nicer. And then from there, you can tweak it a little bit. So let's say I want to tweak it even further. I can pull this over here. I can move this down. And then it gets a little swoopier and a little bit nicer. So let's see, low fencing. Say your garden, each side had 12 garden stakes. Oh, okay. So we just want placeholders for little fence posts. How I would recommend doing that is just taking a hardscaping option with a rectangle. And let's say 1 by 1. We could call this a fence post. And then let's see, if we duplicate them, copy paste, we can do this. You can place them like this, and then at the end, let's see. Oh, you know, I think that would be a good feature, the same way that we have the ability for plants. Let's ungroup these for a minute. Come on. Remove from group. Boom. Okay. The same way that I can select these and distribute them equally. I think a really good addition would be the ability to do that for other objects in the garden as well. So garden beds, garden surfaces like this. I think right now your best bet, if you wanted fence posts to be distributed in that way, is you would have to maybe copy them, you know, and then keep manually placing them kind of like this. So that is certainly maybe not a perfect system, but that's what I would recommend. Let's get rid of these. Okay. Does that answer your question as far as, you know, placing things at regular intervals? Otherwise, I think we're a little bit over, but if anybody has any more questions, I think maybe we can give it one more minute. If not, thank you for joining. And I hope that this has given kind of like a super simple crash course in what the various sections of the page are for and what the buttons can do. We didn't have time to get to everything like the swap feature or the save a copy of the garden feature, but definitely some of those can be covered in further videos. So I think that's it. Thank you, everybody, again, and have a great Saturday. All right. Bye-bye.